Okay. Okay, 3 bells in the afternoon watch, and it's time for Papa. No, that was a children's show. In Syracuse, that I grew up with, we watched a religious way, you could say. Every morning at 8 a.m. it was called Popeye Theater. And this is my own version of it here. And, well, let's just see what we're going to do here. I know I have some guitar picks anywhere. I'm a little bit still jet lagged, folks. So just bear with me while we reassemble. Okay, here's the stash. Jim Dunlop, Jazz 3 picks. I swear by him. Jim Dunlop. They also make a really great wah-wah pedal. But I got rid of that a while ago. Anyway, I'm so glad you could be here with me this afternoon. I might have to make some minor adjustments. Probably would help if I speak into the mic here. So, I don't know, Peter Willems, I know you just tried to call me. I'll call you after the show. What else can I tell you? Well, let's just get right down to it. was a bit of the Alice Coltrane anthem, Journey in Satchidananda, one of the great Ur riffs, I think, in jazz and blues. Yes, I think Alice Coltrane is one of the greats, and her music really sends me. You should get her album on the ABC Impulse of that same name, Journey in Satchidananda. It features Pharoah Sanders, who was in the later Coltrane group before he broke out on his own, and he's one of my favorites. And I thoroughly recommend all those ABC Impulse free jazz albums of that period. They're very, very rich in music, and they definitely sustain themselves and have sustained themselves over many years. And, well, I chose to continue in the solo mode. And last time I did a tribute to Jeff Buckley because of my show coinciding with his birthday. And I think I'll do a little bit more Lucas Buckley music, Buckley Lucas music. Buck Luke was one of the names he suggested actually for our project back in the day, but then he decided he likes Gods and Monsters a lot, and which is funny because the artist I was working with previous to Jeff abhorred that name. I mean, hated that name, and said she thought it was sexist. And all I can tell you is, I proposed calling it Goddesses and Monsters, but that didn't fly either. So at the point where we stopped working together, it was still up in the air what we were going to call this thing. But call it what you want. I think it's all music at the end of the day. And if you want to find out more about my relation with Jeff, please check out my book, Touched by Grace. I think I got down mostly everything I wanted to say about that crazy year we were working together intensely, reverberations of which are still being felt worldwide. And that's the great thing about music, in that it transcends the temporal time span of the makers of it, thanks to the medium of recorded sound over the years. And let's hope there's still a planet left to enjoy it after this little episode with Donald Trump and his exit, which is funny because I have a song called Exit Pursued by a Bear, which is probably one of the biggest howlers in the Shakespearean mythos. This is a line from, it's a stage direction actually, in The Winter's Tale, one of the greatest of all Shakespearean plays. And it kind of just sums it up, doesn't it? Exit pursued by a bear. So I know he's trying to throw this election in his favor. I think he has a very slender chance of doing so, certainly in the company of Rudolph Giuliani leading the charge. It's sort of commedia dell'arte, no, I would say opera buffa, maybe at this point. The best being, I would say today they had something on Twitter. Check out Twitter and go to a website there. Oh well, I'll post it after. You can see for yourself. But he looks completely unhinged and deranged, and he's sweating profusely. It was in a recent court appearance, and he's dripping hair dye down the side of his cheek. It's a kind of a sorry spectacle, but maybe not so sorry. I mean, kind of a welcome diversion from the actual, subversion of the democratic process, which we're watching attempted to be enacted in slow motion. I mean, certainly everyone now should be pinned down in their domiciles. I think the news is not too good about the COVID spiking everywhere. Certainly in the U.S. We're at 250,000 deaths, and there's still no succinct plan. And, you have politicians saying, it's everyone's God-given right to wear a mask or not. And please don't tread on me, I'm an American. All this nationalist gibberish. I would just say, hang on to your masks for as long as you can. It wasn't about Dylan, who had a great film called Masked and Anonymous. If you do venture outside, you have only your eyes, basically, and a muffled voice to communicate with, and it's hard to really know what's going on the other side of that mask. That may be an advantage. I know my neighbor went off in a spurt of rage today at about 20 minutes after 11 a.m. because they had the superintendent into our apartment to adjust the hot water level in our kitchen. I get up pretty early every day when I'm not on tour, and at 7:30 a.m. this morning, it took over 10 minutes for the tap to heat up, the hot water tap in our kitchen, to render it safe to wash a dish, which wasn't too good, so I had the super up here adjusting levels and checking, and it sent Lulu into a barking fit. I mean, terriers, especially schnauzers, are hot-wired for home invasions. They can't really distinguish friend from foe. But certainly an intruder in our apartment is greeted with a lot of barking until she calms down. But this goes right through the wall in our bedroom. I think this building is seriously under code, folks. But needless to say, I've lived here about 43 years now, so unless things get a lot worse, I'm here for a bit longer with Caroline. And in any case, as Lulu was yapping away, and this, engendered extreme pounding with both fists, I can't really describe the effect. It was like a baby, shaking a rattle on our adjoining wall. And I don't know, you just have to grin and bear it, folks. It being New York, there's always some distraction, unless you live in a mansion, like Gracie Mansion, or on the Upper West Side particularly. They have very thick, old tenement-style buildings there, which are fairly sound impregnable. So in any case, what else was I going to say? Oh yeah, I'm going to hold up some recent books that I've been enjoying, and urge you all to seek them out. Okay. Now here is the lovely Jane Birkin's diary from the early 60s to, ends in about the late 80s. Now, I don't know if you know Jane, but she is one of the great icons of cinema. She expated famously from England to France and was married to Serge Gainsbourg for many years and was his muse, appeared in films with him. But before that, I think I first spotted her in Blow Up, Michelangelo Antonioni's fantastic film from 1967, and she plays one of the teenage girls who kind of get ensnared with David Hemmings, the protagonist, who's a mod photographer and a gadfly and a playboy about town. And so there's a great scene where they're kind of cavorting in a studio and tearing down the wallpaper hanging, backdrops for the photo shoots that he does. Quite memorable. Anyway, so this is a pretty good diary. Not the best. Caroline read it, and Caroline has a direct connection with Jane because both of them attended, although at different ages, a very, very famous progressive private school in London called Miss Ironsides. So go look up Miss Ironsides because it spawned all sorts of characters, including Rose Dugdale, who's one of the famous IRA terrorists, I believe, and some other luminaries. And anyway, Caroline is a card-carrying member of the Miss Ironsides Brigade, and I think was she dismissed for wearing an anarchist pin? Maybe so. One of these private schools she went to, I don't know. But anyway, it was not a Jewish school, per se, although she was raised Jewish. It was an equal opportunity school for misfits. Okay, the other book now, she just finished, and I'm really enjoying is Elena Ferrante's latest book, translated to English, The Lying Life of Adults. That about sums it up, doesn't it? she is one of my favorite authors. I read her Naples tetralogy religiously from cover to cover. We passed them among ourselves here like underground literature. And the last volume of the Naples trilogy, My Beautiful Friend, is the catch-all title. I actually bought a his and hers copy so we could simultaneously read it. But this time I was, abroad for 3 weeks in Holland, so Caroline had the first dibs on this book. Now she's finished it. She really enjoyed it, so I'm going to dive into it momentarily. I recommend her writing so highly because I really feel she gives a female perspective maybe as candidly as anyone who ever wrote. And as a guy reading these things, I feel privileged into these glimpses of an interior life. They're beautifully written. They still don't know, well, they suspect that it's a woman named Anita Raya. I have some Italian friends who live directly below this apartment, and it's a couple, and she is involved in the Italian Cultural Office in New York. And so they have it on pretty good authority. It's a somewhat famous translator married to another translator who's doing the actual writing of these books, but under the name Elena Ferrante. But Elena has refused to submit to any interviews and prefers to maintain a veil of anonymity around herself, which is all to their credit. But this has also caused all sorts of snoops and paparazzi, especially in Italy, to sift through her garbage, for instance, in an A.J. Weberman-ish maneuver, who I don't know if you recall Weberman, but he was one of the unhinged Dylanologists who famously sifted through Dylan's garbage when he was living around the time of, I think, John Wesley Hardin on McDougal Street in a brownstone to go through old receipts and then make accusations about how much money he'd made. Similarly to Ferrante, to kind of out her. But she's maintained a stoic silence, which is great. Anyway, I want to read this book, but it kind of dovetails into something funny because recently I kind of rediscovered the joys of Roman Polanski's Macbeth, which the full title is The Tragedy of Macbeth. It's probably the best Shakespearean film ever committed to celluloid. It's certainly one of my favorite films. And it sports an amazing score by the Third Ear Band, who were kind of an acoustic psychedelic band. They had their moments of electricity with the introduction of the great Paul Buckmaster into the lineup around the time that Macbeth was made. And you should seek out their recordings on Harvest. I guess that's EMI. I don't know who is like in control of their estate now. But I recently picked up a Blu-ray copy because I just wanted to see the extras. I was dying to see the extras, which didn't appear in the first go-round on DVD. And they did not disappoint. There's interviews with Polanski on the Dick Cavett show, and also a talk show from England called Aquarius, with another fellow who had just done a black Macbeth stage version in England. And it's really, really good. And then they also commissioned a documentary where they interviewed a lot of the surviving cast, including Francesca Annis, who's so great as Lady Macbeth. You should seek out this film because it's a really daring conception whereby Macbeth and Lady Macbeth are rendered as young individuals who have a lust for power and a greedy ambition. And it's stark. But the music is something else, and to me the music really makes this film. And the music is courtesy of the Third Ear Band. And that's just to say that on my very first trip to London, I sought out Peter Jenner of Black Hill Enterprises, who had managed the Pink Floyd and really got them going in the early days, and then stuck with Syd Barrett when he had a parting of the ways with Pink Floyd.
And Black Hill was promoting all sorts of the best of the underground bands at the time, including the Third Ear Band, who I loved particularly from their contributions to the soundtrack of this film. And I spent an afternoon with their percussionist, de facto leader, Glenn Sweeney, who I guess has passed away, sadly. And it was such a great chat and hanging out at his house, his flat in Notting Hill. And at the end of the time, he gave me a copy of the shooting script of this film that was co-written by Kenneth Tinnin. And it has an embossed bloody fingerprint on the cover that was, I guess, their logo or insignia while they were making this film. And I will cherish the script forever. It's over on the shelf there in a safe place. Anyway, check that out. And it got me to thinking, because I think, I'm also very enamored of Popol Vuh and their soundtracks for Werner Herzog's films. And I wondered if Herzog had the idea to use them after seeing this Polanski film, had the idea of using Popol Vuh after hearing Third Ear Band's contributions to Macbeth, because they're so unusual as film music, and they're based a lot on the drone. And the drone is very much a part of my own music. So, okay, I digress. I've got a few minutes left. I gotta play some more guitar for you. Oh yeah, I said I would do Jeff Buckley, Jerry Lucas song. So this is the music to Mojo Pen. And this is something that I composed sitting right here in this same chair in 1991. And basically, how did I do it? Well, I just passed my fingers over the strings until I heard magic notes. And then I had a little DAT player right here, which has since gone into the junkyard. But every time I would hear something interesting while I was improvising, I'd record it. And thus the whole thing got built up out of originally some motifs. And then, I tried whatever seemed to work, and gradually the outline and contours of this instrumental appeared.
good for you. All right, this is your old friend Gary Lucas. Thank you for tuning in today. And I will see you on Saturday. And until that time, please take care of yourself. Be safe. Wear that mask. And be cool. Okay, take care. I love you.